Hey guys, since I'm here at the fabulous Jersey Shore, I thought I would do a climate change version of the Anti-Despair reading list. First one I'd recommend is E.O. Wilson's Half-Earth. Wilson was a renowned biologist. He became really known for his conservationist writing towards the end of his life. Half-Earth is his proposal that we set aside half of the planet's surface as a wildlife preserve. It's a big ask. Currently, we're nowhere near that percentage. But the idea being that if we set aside half of the earth for humans and half of the earth for actual wildlife and nature, we would be able to preserve a lot of the biodiversity that we depend upon as a species. Now, you might reasonably say that's a really big ask, and it depends on governments behaving well instead of just people undertaking specific actions. So if that's your hang-up to it, I would recommend Douglas Ptolemy's Nature's Best Hope. He basically takes the half-Earth idea and says that we're not going to be able to wait for governments to do this, so we can start in our own backyards. And we do that by planting native species, by encouraging local wildlife to be in our backyards instead of just running them off as soon as they get in there, and trying to cut back as much as possible on the invasive species that actually damage our local environment. If you don't have a backyard, then I recommend Guerrilla Gardening by Richard Reynolds. Guerrilla gardening has been something that's been happening for a while now in a lot of different places. It's basically when you plant stuff in areas that you don't technically own. It's slightly illegal, but at the same time, birds are planting trees by just pooping seeds all over the place, so why shouldn't you? One of the things that they do is they plant seed bombs, and they're basically, you can use clay and you can put milkweed seeds into it and you can just throw it anywhere. That's really good because milkweed's a good pollinator plant. It's the only host plant for the monarch butterfly. It's a little bit more pleasing to most people because people don't like to hear oh, there's going to be bees in my yard now, but they don't really care if there are butterflies. So that's just one example, but they plant stuff all over the place as a way of kind of encouraging native plants and encouraging food plants in your area, whether or not you actually own the property that you're planting it on. If you're looking for another cause to get involved in, rewilding is a really good one. There's a book by George Monbiot called Feral. If you haven't seen it, go over to YouTube, it may be on TikTok too, where he talks about how the wolves were reintroduced into Yellowstone and how that actually changed the course of the rivers just because they have such a wild effect on the local ecosystem. Rewilding is the idea that nature will actually start to just get back to normal regardless of whether or not humans take part in it. It just does it on its own. We really started noticing this in Chernobyl after the fallout. We cleared out all the humans and all of a sudden there was all this wildlife there. And sure, the wildlife got radiation poisoning, but it wasn't killed by humans, so it ended up living longer anyway. Obviously, all of these books are just animals and kind of biodiversity side of the whole climate change coin. It does nothing about carbon emissions, but it's a really good start if you love nature and you want to see more of it in your area. I have not read every book, so please sound off in the comments if you have more recommendations.